Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have John Neuenberg on the line, and he's a business coach over at W5 Coaching, Inc. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we got a lot to talk about today. So we're going to talk about how W5 Coaching is helping small business owners get their lives back. So a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that listen to this. So excited to get into that and more. But to get us kicked off here, John, maybe tell us a little bit more about yourself. How'd you get into the coaching business?
Well, I've been a coach since 2004, so about 22 years. But the other answer, which is also true, is all of my life. It was Steve Jobs who said you can only connect the dots going backwards. And about 6 months into coaching, I had an epiphany one morning and connected some dots and realized, oh my gosh, I've always been a coach. And just in 2004, made it more formal and professionally called myself a coach.
Take me back in time a bit now here. Were you always in business? Were you always kind of like entrepreneurial, or like give me a feel for that?
For 17 years of my career, I worked for a national menswear retailer, started as a sales guy in a store, and over 17 years lived in a bunch of places in Canada. Ultimately, I was in Toronto, and after about 5 years of that, I decided I wanted to get back to Vancouver. I got myself headhunted, became president of something called BC Liquor Stores, which, to give you a sense of the place today, it does $3 billion in sales and 200 locations and 4,000 FTEs. So retail, it's a big business, but running a retail is like running 200 small businesses that just happen to be assembled under the same roof.
Yeah. When you decided to go out on your own and to get into the coaching space, what was that like when you finally decided to kind of make that transition?
Well, it was time. I wanted to row my own canoe. Felt like corporate life was something I wanted to leave behind. So I was focused and driven, but it's also pretty scary in the sense on some of the, safety nets that you have in place when you're in big corporate life. You don't have them, but the other side of that coin is you get a lot more freedom to row the canoe in the way that you want. And so everything that's a bit scary has an optimistic or, a positive side to it.
What do you like about being a coach and working with small business owners? Like what draws you to that piece of life? A lot of things you can obviously do with your time and with your expertise, but why help small business owners?
I kind of stumbled into it. So it wasn't sort of something I set out to do, but I stumbled into it and found a way to open up or start a coaching business. And once as I said earlier, I started, I realized, oh man, I've been wired to do this all of my life. It's a bit of an adjustment going from, being the head of something that does $3 billion to helping small business owners who are, more typically kind of $1 million in revenue and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. And so it was a bit of adjustment to learn what's on their minds and what their issues are and what they're looking to do or looking to have happen in their lives.
And in your view, what is the purpose of a small business, like in your views?
So I'm going to give you an answer that's a bit of a counterintuitive, and it wouldn't be the answer a small business owner might give to their team members, certainly not to their customers. The ultimate purpose of a small business is to give its owner the life he or she wants. So here's the thing. None of us were born to business. We were born to live. And yet what happens so often for a small business owner is they get so wrapped around the axle of their business that their business sort of takes over their lives. And, they mean well and they have their heart, their mind in the right place, but they can't figure out why they're working 70 hours a week and what needs to change to get it back to something where they can go and see one of their kids' games or possibly go for a date night.
When did you realize this? I love what you're saying, by the way, because in my mind, it's always like the small business owner is the one, and I like the way that you kind of teed it up. You're like, it's probably not what everybody wants to hear, but you didn't say those exact words, but it's true. It's like they're the ones taking the risk. They're the ones that are out there, like you mentioned. They don't get to necessarily, depending on the size of the business, how it's built. I'm generalizing a bit here, but they don't get to check out on the weekend normally, depending on the size of the business. So I love your answer, but I'm curious, when did you have that realization, or did you always know? I don't know.
I did pretty early because I saw what was happening to business owners. So the kinds of owners I work with are typically one of two kinds. So they own a trades business, so they're electricians and plumbers and other home services kinds of businesses, or they're professional advisors, so they're lawyers, accountants, health practitioners, and that sounds very different, but what they have in common is they're very good at a trade, very good at a profession. 5 years to become certified as a journeyman electrician, or 7 years to become a lawyer. But what neither of them have ever had is an education in business. So they're good at a trade, good at a profession, then find out 2, 3, 4 years into it, just because you're good at a trade doesn't mean you're good at business. And so, sometimes people ask me, how can you help me? I'm an electrician. Well, hey, look, I can't help you be a better electrician, but that's not what the problem is. The problem is you want to become better as a business owner. That's the part you need help with.
Yeah. Where do you find a lot of business owners, like when you first start working with them, and of course everybody's going to be a little bit different, but where do you find are some of the opportunity areas, like when you first start working with someone, that are just maybe obvious to you because you've done this for so long and worked with so many people, but maybe not so obvious for the person that's going in to begin the relationship?
Well, I'll start with an anecdote. One of my first ever clients, I was working with this person to build out a strategic and a business plan. It's kind of like it came from an academic kind of point of view that, hey, let's set the path. What are we trying to do here? And I was working with this person for about 3-4 weeks, and he wasn't very engaged, wasn't really participating. And I stopped him and said to him, hey, what's going on? How come you're not very engaged in this? And he looked at me square in the face and said, well, I don't know why we're doing this. I can't make payroll tomorrow. That's when I realized I was a doofus. Of course, a strategic plan was completely irrelevant to him. And he was much, much more concerned about, cash flow in the business. And so every business owner I work with starts with problems around time, team, or money. So time sounds like I've got too much to do and not enough time to do it. I can't get everything done. If I don't do it, it won't get done. That's a lot of what a small business owner is saying to themselves. When it comes to team, it's recruiting, getting good team members is very hard, getting the culture you want, getting people to do work at the standard that you want. And money is both, on one side, getting proper financials, accounting, reporting, understanding what the numbers mean. And the other side of money is I want more money, I want better sales and marketing. So if you aren't complaining, if you're a business owner and not complaining about one or all of those three things, we probably don't have anything to talk about. But business owners I come across very much relate to what I'm describing. The guy working 70 hours, or I sometimes like to ask business owners, hey, how many people you got? I got 10. Hey, if you could start from scratch, how many of the 10 would you rehire? And the most
that's a good question. Yeah.
Well,
that's a great question.
Thanks for most common answer I get to that is about half. And that sort of, well, let me just ask you something. You mean the bottom half of your team is annoying the top half? What happens if we get the bottom half to be at least the average today? How would that help you with your customers? How would that make your life better? And, it's an example of we kind of tolerate stuff that we shouldn't tolerate. And ultimately, at the end of the day, whatever it is you're tolerating is the actual true statement. What you're prepared is the statement of your culture. You want your life to get better, find a way to, get better people and get them better positioned so that they can do work at the level you need.
Why is it, switching focus slightly here, John, why is it a trap to be a hub and spoke leader?
So it's a metaphor, of course, but if you think of a bicycle wheel, think about a bicycle wheel, and the center is a hub. And that hub, for most business owners, is the owner themselves. They're the very center of the business. And so the spokes in this metaphor here are all the things that everyone's tugging at your elbow, saying, what do you want me to do here, or what decision, or how are you going to help me with that problem? So everything that happens in the business in one way or another has to go through the hub, and the hub is you, the business owner. Now let's just imagine that in this bicycle wheel, we took out that hub. What would happen to the wheel? Of course, there wouldn't be a wheel at all. Done, exactly. And so what is a difficult transition for most business owners to make is to stop thinking of themselves as the owner-operator and start thinking of themselves as the leader-owner. Let me give you a metaphor. So let's say you're a captain in the Navy. You're on a 50 50-foot boat, the crew is 10, and you, the captain, are the most qualified engine room guy. How often is it in the engine room? All the time. All right, well, let's make you a captain of a 150-foot boat, and now the crew is 50. How often should that captain be in the engine room at all? Well, maybe if there's a fire. That transition from the 50-foot to the 150-foot takes a complete shift in the lens and the way that you think about your role and the way you lead or operate that business. That's actually the trap. You're still stuck in the hub and spoke, and that's why you're working 70 hours.
So as like somebody's listening to this, obviously, and at the end, I'll give you an opportunity to leave contact and follow-up information, but somebody's listening to this right now, they're kind of resonating and they're thinking, man, he's talking about me. How do you start that transition? Obviously, this is more complex than we're going to be able to handle in a podcast interview, but how do you start that transition if you finally have the realization to know you need to make a change?
Well, every business owner I starts with a business coach because they have what I call a burning bush. I gave you one example, a guy couldn't make payroll. Another example, he's working 70 hours a week and he hasn't been able to get to one of his kids' games and he's had enough. I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
Some guy, just recognizes, oh my gosh, I need to get $100,000 more in sales in the next 3 months. And so the way we start is always with fix the thing, fix the burning bush. Let's agree on what the burning bush is for you. We'll solve for that, and that might take 6 weeks or 2 or 3 months. And once we do that, we then can, catch our breath and decide, okay, now let's do this in a systematic, organized way, a structured way, which you can do. But what I've learned is that you don't even bother trying to do that until you've fixed the thing, fixed the burning bush.
Makes a lot of sense, especially using the example that you mentioned. Like he's trying to make payroll. He's got to he's not thinking about other things and he's looking at how do I solve that right now. So I like that, the burning bush. And everybody's going to have probably a different burning bush, depends on what it's going to be. And you gave some good examples. John, this has been a lot of fun, learning more about you, about your background and how you're helping small business owners. That being said, last question, how do people connect with you at W5 Coaching? And also what types of business, so I should say last 2 questions, 2-part question. Also, what type of business owners and or organizations get the most value out of working with you and your team, whether it's by industry, size, or whatever your criteria is?
Sure. Well, you can find me at W5 Coaching. I'll give you a little story. What's W5? Well, I told you that I help business owners by helping them figure it out for themselves. And you do that by asking great questions and helping them think out loud, really. And the core questions all start with the W, who, what, when, where, why. So if you're wondering how to find me, go to w5coaching.com, and I'm easy to find, easy to get a hold of.
Awesome. And what type of clients you feel normally get the best use out of working with you and your team? Like what type of small businesses or owners?
They're typically doing something like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. They're typically trades businesses, so electricians and plumbers and home services kinds of businesses. They're guys that started with 1 truck, 2 trucks. Now they have 5, 6, 7 trucks, and things aren't working the way that they wanted. And the other kind of business are professional advisors, and by that I mean lawyers, accountants, health practitioners. What they all have in common is offer professional advice. The advice, of course, is different, but the challenges, the business owner challenges, are very common, both to the professional advisor community and the home trades services kinds of businesses.
Perfect. And for everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put some links in the show notes so you can connect with John and his team. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. You heard me correct. Each and every day we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So hit that subscribe or follow. And John, thanks again for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.